Millionaire catches his maid protecting his special child, and he's shocked. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story like this one. Stories that open your eyes, touch your heart, and remind you that sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who save us. And tell me down in the comments, from which city are you watching this video today? The screen fades in. Heavy rain pounds against the tall windows of a sprawling mansion. Lightning flashes, illuminating the cold marble floors and the expensive chandeliers overhead. Somewhere inside, a sound breaks through the storm, a voice, sharp and cruel, echoing down the corridor. "Don't you ever touch that again, you useless child." The words cut like knives. The storm outside is nothing compared to the storm brewing inside this house. At the far end of the hallway, a little girl of 10 shrinks back, her small hands clutching the edge of her toy. Her eyes, wide and innocent, glisten with confusion and pain. She doesn't understand why the woman towering over her spits venom with every word. The woman's heels click loudly against the marble as she steps closer, her expression twisted with disdain. She bends down, her voice lowering to a hiss. "You're nothing but a burden. Your father may love you, but I will never waste my life taking care of you." The little girl's lips tremble, but she says nothing. Her toy slips from her fingers and lands on the floor with a dull thud. The sound lingers in the silence until another voice, trembling but firm, rises from behind. "That's enough." The woman straightens, startled. Slowly, she turns, her expression morphing into annoyance. And there, standing in the doorway, is someone she never expected to challenge her. A figure dressed in plain clothes, with tired eyes but a strength radiating from within. The housekeeper, the one nobody notices, the one nobody respects. But tonight, she is not invisible. She steps forward, her body forming a protective barrier between the little girl and the furious woman. Her hands shake, but her voice grows stronger with each word. "If you have a problem with me, say it to my face. But you will not, under any circumstances, harm this child." Lightning flashes again, illuminating the scene. The child trembling behind the maid, the cruel woman glaring in rage, and the storm pounding outside as if the sky itself is bearing witness to this confrontation. And then, unseen from the shadows at the top of the staircase, a man watches. His fists clench at his sides, his jaw tightens, and his heart pounds in disbelief. For the first time, he sees with his own eyes what had been hidden from him for far too long. This is where our story begins. The stormy night lingers in our memory, but to truly understand how everything came to this moment, we must step back into the days when love filled the walls of this mansion, when laughter echoed through the halls instead of cruelty. The sound of the rain fades, replaced by the soft melody of a piano playing in a grand salon. The camera glides across a sunlit room where a young girl, much smaller, no more than 4 years old, claps her hands to the rhythm. Beside her, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile leans down, brushing a lock of hair from the child's face. Her touch is tender, filled with a mother's warmth. But that warmth did not last forever. A voiceover drifts in, heavy with sorrow. Life can be crueler than we imagine. Sometimes it steals from us the very light we depend on. The image fades to a funeral. Black umbrellas open under a gray sky, rain falling like tears from the heavens. The young man, the father, stands rigid, his face pale, holding his daughter close. She clings to him, confused, asking in a small voice where her mother has gone. He swallows hard, but he cannot answer. His silence says everything. The coffin lowers into the ground, and with it, a piece of him is buried forever. From that day, the mansion became quiet, almost too quiet. He threw himself into work, into business, into keeping the empire alive, while his daughter grew up without the woman who once filled her world with love. The girl's condition, her Down syndrome, made her vulnerable, requiring care, patience, and tenderness. But instead of soft arms to comfort her, she often had only silence, and a father too consumed by grief to notice her tears at night. And it was in that silence that she appeared, The flashback shifts to a glamorous evening gala. Music plays, champagne flows, and men in tuxedos laugh while women in sparkling gowns parade through the crowd. There, under the golden light of chandeliers, the widower is introduced to a woman whose beauty is undeniable. Her smile is charming, her words calculated, her eyes sharp. "Such a tragedy you've endured," she says, her hand brushing his arm with deliberate softness. "No man should carry so much alone." He nods, her sympathy piercing the emptiness inside him. And when she places her hand over his, he feels, for the first time in years, that maybe he isn't entirely alone. But while he sees comfort, she sees opportunity. Behind the curve of her smile, ambition burns. The scenes move quickly now. Dinners by candlelight, where her laughter fills the void left by grief. Tender walks through the garden, where she whispers promises of family and loyalty. His daughter, watching silently from the corner, uncertain about the new woman who suddenly holds her father's hand. At first, the little girl tries to smile, tries to accept this stranger. But children often see truths adults cannot. The warmth is not real. The kindness fades when the father turns his back. In its place, cold eyes and a voice dripping with irritation. "You are not my daughter. Don't look at me like that," she hisses one day, leaning close so no one else can hear. The girl recoils, frightened, but when she runs to tell her father, the woman kneels down and hugs her tightly, masking the venom with sweetness. "Oh, darling, I think she just misses her mother," the stepmother says, stroking the girl's hair. The father, exhausted and guilty, believes her. And so, slowly, the mansion changes again, not into a home, but into a prison of appearances. The father sees a wife who comforts him, but behind his back, the child suffers silently. The servants whisper, sensing the cruelty but too afraid to speak. Only one among them dares to watch closely. The housemaid, a woman unnoticed by most, but whose eyes never miss the truth. And it is here, in this contrast of appearances and secrets, that the seeds of our story take root. The millionaire, blinded by grief and longing, is slipping deeper into the hands of a woman who only sees him as a fortune to control. His daughter, tender and innocent, is left unprotected, or so it seems. Because in the quiet, in the shadows of the house, someone is already watching. Someone whose loyalty and courage will soon change everything. The camera fades from the gray of the past into the warm glow of the present. The mansion stands proudly against the horizon, its stone walls and tall windows shining in the morning sun. From the outside, it looks like the picture of perfection: a wealthy family, a powerful man, a glamorous wife, and a little girl who should want for nothing. But behind those gilded walls, appearances are only illusions. Inside, the dining hall is dressed in elegance, silver cutlery aligned perfectly, crystal glasses catching the light. The father sits at the head of the table, his expression weary yet composed, as though business occupies every corner of his mind. His daughter sits to his right, her small hands fumbling with her spoon. She smiles when her father looks her way, but the moment his eyes drop back to his newspaper, the smile fades. At the far end, the stepmother sits upright, flawless in appearance, her silk robe tied loosely, her lips painted even in the morning. She watches the girl with a tightness in her jaw, her eyes flickering with irritation every time the child struggles with her food. "Must she make such a mess?" she mutters, her voice sharp but soft enough that the father, lost in thought, does not hear. The maid, standing silently near the wall, notices. She steps forward quickly, her voice calm, respectful. "I'll help her, madam." She kneels by the child, guiding her hand gently, whispering encouragement until the spoon reaches her lips without spilling. The girl smiles again, comforted, but the stepmother's glare could burn holes through glass. Later, as the father leaves for his office, kissing his wife's cheek without noticing her stiff posture, the mask finally slips. The heavy doors close behind him, and silence fills the hall. The child looks up, expecting perhaps another kind word, But instead the woman leans closer, her voice low and venomous. "You will not embarrass me in front of him again." The child freezes, her spoon dropping with a clatter. Her lips tremble, but before the tears can fall, the maid steps forward. She doesn't speak yet, only sets a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. The moment is broken when the stepmother straightens, her mask slipping back into place as footsteps echo through the corridor. Another servant passing by. She knows better than to reveal her cruelty to everyone. Not yet. The days pass, and the cracks in her disguise widen. The maid sees it more and more. The coldness when the father is absent. The way the woman pushes chores onto the girl that are far beyond her ability. The whispered insults that chip away at her fragile self-esteem. "You're slow. You're useless. Why can't you just behave like other children?" Each word is a dagger, and though the girl doesn't fully understand their meaning, she feels the sting. But she also feels the warmth of the maid's presence, the quiet comfort of a woman who kneels down, wipes her tears, and whispers, "Don't listen to her. You are perfect just as you are." One evening, the father hosts a dinner for his business associates. The grand dining room fills with laughter, glasses clinking, the smell of roasted meats and expensive wines in the air. The stepmother shines in this world. She plays her role with perfection, her charm wrapping around every guest like a silken thread. But the girl, seated quietly at the corner of the table, fidgets with her fork. She whispers to her father, "Can I go play?" He looks down, about to nod, but his wife interrupts quickly. "No, darling. You should stay. It's time you learn how to behave properly at important dinners." Her voice is sweet, but her eyes cut like knives. The girl's shoulders slump, and she lowers her head. The father, caught between business chatter and family, sighs, not noticing the hidden cruelty beneath his wife's words. He squeezes his daughter's hand absent-mindedly, then returns to his conversation. The maid watches from the shadows, anger boiling in her chest. She knows the child does not belong here, trapped in a world of cold etiquette and silent judgment. But she says nothing, not yet. That night, after the guests depart and the halls grow silent, a different voice fills the mansion. Harsh, sharp, filled with venom. "You embarrass me tonight." Fidgeting, whining, always making a fool of yourself. "Do you want your father to think I can't even handle a child?" The girl, cornered at the bottom of the staircase, shakes her head, her small hands clutched against her chest. The stepmother steps closer, her face inches away, her whisper a hiss. "You'll ruin everything for me. Everything." A creak breaks the silence. The maid appears at the top of the stairs, holding a tray she had been carrying back to the kitchen. Her eyes widen as she takes in the scene. The stepmother freezes, caught, her mask slipping fully now. For a moment, silence. The storm is not outside. It is here inside the house. And the man of the house, still unaware, sleeps in his room just a few doors away. The maid grips the tray tighter, her heart pounding. She knows this is only the beginning. The mansion breathes with secrets. By day, it is all glitter and prestige. Businessmen arriving in polished cars, maids polishing every surface until it gleams, and the lady of the house smiling sweetly as she plays her perfect role. But at night, when the lights dim and the grand halls fall silent, the cracks widen. Whispers travel through corridors. Shadows lengthen, and the truth begins to claw its way out. It starts with small things, things the father cannot ignore forever. One morning, he returns earlier than usual from his office. The front door creaks open, his briefcase swinging loosely at his side. He steps into the grand foyer and freezes. There, on the marble floor, lies his daughter's toy, shattered, its pieces scattered like broken glass across the rug. His brow furrows. What happened here? Silence. His daughter, standing by the staircase, hugs herself tightly, her eyes wet. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. The fear in her eyes says more than words ever could. The stepmother appears seconds later, her tone syrupy and calm. "Oh, darling. She tripped and broke it. I told her to be careful, but you know how clumsy she can be." The father looks between them. The girl opens her mouth, but the woman's sharp glance silences her instantly. The father sighs, rubbing his temple. We'll buy another one. But in his chest, a flicker of unease stirs. Days later, another sign. He sits in his office late at night, papers spread across the mahogany desk, when faint noises echo from down the hall. A muffled cry, a hushed, impatient voice. He stands, heart tightening, and follows the sound. The voices lead him to his daughter's room. He places his hand on the doorknob, hesitates, then pushes it open. The sight freezes him. His daughter is in bed, clutching her blanket, her eyes red from crying. And at her side, the maid kneels, whispering softly, stroking the girl's hair to soothe her trembling body. The stepmother is nowhere in sight. The father steps inside. What happened? The maid looks up, startled. For a moment, fear flickers across her face, as if she has been caught in something forbidden. She had a nightmare, sir. The girl's lips part, as though she wants to say more, but she glances nervously at the door, as if expecting someone to appear, and remains silent. The father nods slowly, but suspicion gnaws at him. He knows his daughter. He knows when her tears are not from dreams, but from something far more real. The following evening, the mask cracks further. Dinner is tense. The stepmother sits tall, speaking of business opportunities and social connections, her hand resting lightly on her husband's. But her words fall on deaf ears. He watches his daughter instead, noticing the way she picks at her food nervously, her shoulders hunched as though waiting for reprimand. Finally, the girl drops her fork. It clatters against the plate. She flinches instantly, her whole body bracing for something unseen. The father notices. His eyes narrow. "Sweetheart," he says gently, "it's fine. Don't worry." But when he glances across the table, he sees his wife's jaw tighten, her nails digging into the napkin on her lap. Something is wrong. The storm breaks in small bursts. One afternoon, the maid hurries into the kitchen, holding the girl's hand protectively. The child's face is pale, her eyes wide. "What happened?" whispers another servant, rushing forward. The maid hesitates, glancing at the hallway, then lowers her voice. "She was cornered. I walked in just in time." The servant gasps, but before another word can be spoken, footsteps echo from the hall, sharp, deliberate. The stepmother enters, her eyes narrowing when she sees the pair. "Why are you here?" she demands, her tone cold, cutting through the air. The maid straightens. "She wasn't feeling well, madam. I brought her here to rest." The stepmother's smile is thin, false. "How thoughtful of you." She steps closer, her gaze lingering on the child, then flicking to the maid. "But you must remember your place." For the first time, the maid's eyes flash with defiance. Just for a second, enough for the stepmother to see that this woman is not as invisible as she thought. That night, when the father prepares for bed, he hears his daughter's faint voice through the wall. Not words, only whimpers. He sits on the edge of his bed, the weight of his guilt pressing down. "Have I been blind?" His wife enters moments later, silk robe flowing, her perfume sweet but suffocating. "You're distracted," she says softly, sliding beside him. He doesn't answer. His eyes linger on the door to his daughter's room. Is something wrong? He finally speaks, his tone sharper than usual. "She cries too often." The woman smiles faintly. Children cry. He looks at her then, really looks at her, and for the first time, he feels the distance between them. The mansion awakens with the golden rays of dawn pouring through its tall windows, but there is no warmth inside these walls. Behind closed doors, tension coils tighter every day, ready to snap at the smallest provocation. The father leaves early that morning, as he always does, his polished car rolling out of the gates toward another day of meetings and contracts. The stepmother waves from the doorway with a radiant smile, her silhouette glowing in the sunlight. But the moment the car disappears behind the hedges, her expression hardens. The mask slips. Inside, the little girl sits in the playroom, her toys neatly arranged, her tiny fingers stacking blocks carefully. She hums softly to herself, the melody broken and sweet. It is a fragile moment of peace until footsteps echo in the hall. Sharp, deliberate. The stepmother enters, her eyes sweeping across the room. At first, she says nothing, just watches the child play. Then she speaks, her voice deceptively soft. "You think your father loves you more than me, don't you?" The girl freezes, her hands trembling as the block tower collapses with a crash. Her wide eyes flick up, and she shakes her head quickly. The woman steps closer, kneeling so her face is level with the girl's. Her smile is thin, chilling. "You're the reason he married me. He needed someone to deal with you. But you're a burden, and I'm tired of carrying you." The words stab the child deeper than any blade. Tears well in her eyes. That is when the maid appears in the doorway, holding a basket of laundry against her hip. She pauses, taking in the scene. The child trembling, the woman towering above her like a predator. The basket slips slightly in her grip, her knuckles tightening. "Madam," she says quietly, but her voice is steady. The child has done nothing wrong. The stepmother's head snaps around, her eyes blazing. "Did I ask for your opinion?" The maid's heart pounds, but she doesn't look away. She sets the basket down, steps into the room, and positions herself between the woman and the girl. "If she is a burden to you, then let me carry her. But you will not speak to her like that." A dangerous silence fills the air. The stepmother's lips curve into a cruel smile. "You forget your place." The maid straightens her back, meeting her gaze. "No, madam. It seems you have forgotten yours." That evening, when the father returns, he senses something is off. His daughter clings to him tighter than usual, her small arms refusing to let go. The maid lingers nearby, her face composed, but her eyes shadowed with worry. "Is something wrong?" he asks, glancing between them. The stepmother sweeps into the room before anyone can answer, draping her arm through his. "She's just been restless today. Children do have moods, you know." He studies his daughter's face, her eyes downcast, her lips pressed tight. For a moment, he hesitates, then kisses her forehead and forces a smile. "Everything will be fine, sweetheart." But deep inside, unease gnaws at him. The confrontation does not end there. That night, as the staff clears the dining hall, the stepmother corners the maid in the pantry. Her voice is low, venomous. "Do not ever challenge me again. If you think your loyalty impresses anyone, you're mistaken. You're nothing here. A servant. Disposable." The maid's chest rises and falls with quiet fury. She wants to shout, to call her out, to expose the cruelty. But she knows the father is still blind, and a single wrong move could cost her not just her job, but the child's safety. So she lowers her gaze, says nothing. But inside, a fire burns hotter than ever. That fire soon becomes action. Days later, in the garden, the child plays quietly with her dolls. The air smells of roses, bees buzzing lazily in the background. For once, the world feels safe, until the stepmother's shadow looms again. "Why can't you act like a normal child?" she hisses, snatching the doll from the girl's hand and tossing it aside. The girl's eyes fill with tears. She bends to retrieve the doll, but before she can, the stepmother's heel grinds into it, snapping it in two. The child lets out a broken sob. And this time, the maid doesn't hesitate. She rushes forward, grabs the woman's arm, and pulls her back sharply. "Enough!" Her voice echoes through the garden, strong, defiant. For a heartbeat, both women lock eyes. Predator and protector, fire against fire. The stepmother's face twists in rage, but before she can respond, the sound of footsteps interrupts. The father stands at the edge of the garden, frozen, having witnessed the last few seconds. His wife looming, his daughter crying, the maid stepping in like a shield. He doesn't speak. He can't. His world, carefully held together by illusions, is beginning to fracture. The sun sets slowly, staining the sky above the mansion with streaks of crimson and gold. From the outside, it looks like a perfect painting. The wealth, the serenity, the majesty of a man who has everything. But inside, cracks spread like veins through marble, silent but unstoppable. The father sits alone in his study that evening, the heavy curtains drawn, a glass of whiskey untouched on the desk. Papers lie scattered, contracts waiting for his signature, but his mind is elsewhere. His eyes linger on the memory of the garden, his wife's shadow stretching menacingly over his daughter, the maid stepping in like a shield. He leans back in his chair, his chest tightening. Have I been blind? For years, he convinced himself he was healing, that remarrying was not only for himself, but also for his daughter, so she could grow up with a mother's presence. But what if that presence was poison? The thought chills him. He lifts the whiskey to his lips, then sets it down again without drinking. He cannot quiet the unease. The following morning, he decides to test the air of his home. He lingers longer than usual before leaving for work, watching quietly. At breakfast, his wife's smile is flawless, her voice sweet. Darling, I'm planning a charity event this weekend. We'll invite the mayor, some investors. It will be marvelous for your image. He nods absently, but his gaze slides toward his daughter. She stirs her cereal quietly, her small shoulders hunched, her eyes cast down. He studies her, the way she flinches slightly whenever her stepmother speaks, the way her hands shake when she lifts her spoon. Sweetheart, he says gently, do you want me to take you to school today? Her head lifts quickly, hope sparking in her eyes. But before she can answer, the woman interrupts. Darling, she'll be fine with the driver. You have too much work, don't you? His jaw tightens. He forces a smile and kisses his daughter's head, but inside, the unease deepens. That evening, he returns earlier than expected. The mansion is quiet, too quiet. He sets his briefcase down and walks down the corridor, his footsteps soft against the carpet. From the playroom, he hears it, a harsh voice, low but sharp. Stop crying. You're too old to cry like a baby. He freezes. He edges closer, standing just outside the door, his heart hammering. Peeking through the crack, he sees it, his wife standing over his daughter, arms crossed, eyes cold as ice. The girl sits on the floor, hugging her knees, silent tears streaking her face. His breath catches, his fists clench. But before he can step inside, another figure enters, the maid. She kneels beside the girl, wrapping her arms around her. Her voice trembles with anger, but it is steady, defiant. You don't have to listen to her. You are precious. You are loved. The woman's head snaps toward her, fury blazing. Get out. The maid rises slowly, her body shielding the child. Not until you leave her alone. The father grips the doorframe, his heart pounding. He should storm inside, should shout, should end it. But something holds him back, shock, disbelief, fear of what this truth might mean for his carefully constructed world. He steps back silently, his breath ragged. For the first time, doubt is no longer a whisper. It is a roar inside him. Later that night, in bed beside his wife, he lies awake staring at the ceiling. Her perfume hangs heavy in the air, but instead of comfort, it suffocates him. He listens to her steady breathing, her peaceful sleep, and wonders how such serenity could hide such cruelty. He turns onto his side, staring into the darkness. If what I saw is true, then I have failed my daughter. I swore I'd protect her after her mother died. Have I given her over to someone who despises her? His chest aches, guilt pressing down like iron chains. The next day, he tests the waters again. He tells his wife he must leave for a meeting earlier than usual, but instead, he stays. Hidden in the quiet of his study, he listens. The hours pass slowly until he hears it. The sound of footsteps rushing, a door slamming, and then his daughter's cry. He rushes to the hall, just in time to see the maid leading the girl away, her face pale, her hands shaking. The stepmother stands behind them, her eyes flashing with rage. When she notices him, she instantly softens, her mask snapping back into place. Oh, darling, she says smoothly, she was misbehaving again. I was only trying to discipline her. The maid turns, her lips parting as though she wants to speak, but fear silences her. The father looks between them, his wife's perfect smile and the maid's trembling defiance. His daughter clutches his hand desperately, her eyes begging him to understand. And in that moment, he knows. The truth he has been avoiding is undeniable. The mansion no longer feels like home. To the millionaire, it has become a labyrinth of whispers, secrets, and shadows. Every polished marble floor, Every golden-framed painting seems to conceal something he has refused to see. But denial is a luxury he cannot afford anymore. Not after the garden, not after the playroom, not after the tears in his daughter's eyes. Still, he needs certainty, proof. His heart aches with suspicion, but his mind demands evidence. And so he begins to watch. That night, long after everyone has gone to bed, he walks through the silent halls in bare feet. The mansion creaks under his weight, the chandeliers swaying faintly in the night breeze. He pauses outside his daughter's room. The door is cracked open, and he sees her curled up in bed, clutching a stuffed toy to her chest, her face damp with dried tears. A knot forms in his throat. He pushes the door open gently, kneels beside her, and brushes a strand of hair from her cheek. Her eyelids flutter, but she doesn't wake. He whispers softly, almost to himself, "I promise you, I will find out the truth." From the shadows of the hallway, another figure watches silently, the maid. Her hands clutch the edge of the wall, her eyes glistening. She has seen everything, the girl's suffering, the cruelty, the father's blindness. And now, at last, he is beginning to see. The next day, the stepmother's mask slips further. She is in the salon, entertaining two friends from high society. They sip champagne, laugh too loudly, and glance around the mansion as though measuring its worth. "Oh, she's such a delicate little thing," the woman says, feigning affection as she gestures toward the girl, who sits quietly in the corner, drawing with crayons. But of course she's different. Not everyone could handle a child like her. It takes a woman of patience, doesn't it? Her friends chuckle politely. One raises a brow, murmuring, "And what patience you must have, dear." The woman smiles triumphantly, her eyes sharp as glass. But what she doesn't notice is the millionaire standing just outside the doorway, listening. His jaw clenches. Each word she speaks, each false smile she gives, drives another blade into his chest. He turns away, his heart hammering, the betrayal sinking deeper. That evening, as the guests depart and the halls fall quiet, tension erupts. The stepmother storms into the playroom, her voice a whip. "Why must you always embarrass me? Sitting there like some stray dog, drawing like a fool. Do you understand how humiliating you are?" The girl's crayons scatter across the floor as her trembling hands clutch her sketchbook to her chest. Tears spill down her cheeks. The maid bursts into the room, her breath sharp, her eyes blazing. She doesn't hesitate this time. She grabs the woman's wrist, pulling her back. "That's enough." Her voice echoes against the walls. "She is just a child. If you cannot see her worth, that is your blindness, not hers." The stepmother yanks her arm free, her face twisted in rage. "You dare put your hands on me? You will regret this." But before she can strike back, the sound of footsteps interrupts. Heavy, deliberate. The millionaire enters. His eyes sweep across the scene, his daughter sobbing, the maid standing protectively before her, his wife red with fury. Silence suffocates the room. "Explain," he demands, his voice low, dangerous. The woman recovers quickly, her mask snapping back into place. "Darling, you misunderstand. She overstepped her role. I was disciplining the child, and she—" The maid interrupts, her voice trembling but strong. "That is not discipline. That is cruelty." The millionaire's gaze darkens. He doesn't speak. Instead, he looks at his daughter. She hesitates, her small hands trembling, then whispers through her tears, She hates me, Papa." The words shatter him. His chest tightens, his world spinning. He reaches for her, pulling her into his arms, her tears soaking into his shirt. The stepmother pales, fury flickering in her eyes. But she cannot argue now, not with the child's confession still hanging in the air. That night, the mansion feels colder than ever. The millionaire sits in his study, staring at the fire, the weight of betrayal crushing him. He remembers his late wife's laughter, her warmth, the promise he made at her grave. "I will protect our daughter. Always." And now, he sees how far he has failed. In the shadows outside the study, the maid lingers. She wants to speak, to comfort him, to tell him everything she has seen. but fear grips her. She knows the stepmother's wrath is only growing stronger, and the closer the truth comes to light, the more dangerous it will become for all of them. The storm is broken. Masks are slipping, alliances shifting. The millionaire is no longer blind, the child no longer silent, the maid no longer invisible. And the stepmother, furious, exposed, desperate, is becoming reckless. The mansion, once a monument of pride, now breathes like a beast on the verge of collapse. Its golden chandeliers and polished marble floors cannot mask the poison that flows through its corridors. Every glance exchanged between husband and wife is sharper, every silence heavier. And at the heart of it all, a child trembles, caught between innocence and cruelty. The following afternoon, the air inside the house is suffocating. The stepmother paces the living room, her heels striking against the marble with angry precision. Her fury has only grown since the girl's confession. How dare a child shatter her perfect illusion in front of her husband? She corners the maid in the hallway, her voice a venomous hiss. "You think you're clever, don't you?" Whispering in his ear, turning him against me. "But let me tell you something. You will never take my place here. You're nothing." The maid meets her glare, her heart racing. "I don't want your place. I want her safe." The stepmother's eyes flicker with something darker than anger. "Safe?" she repeats with a laugh. "Then you should know. Accidents happen. Children trip. Children fall. Sometimes I don't get back up." The words hang in the air like a curse. The maid's face pales. She steps forward, her voice breaking with fury. If you ever heard her. But before she can finish, the sound of a door creaking startles them. The millionaire stands at the end of the hall, his expression unreadable, his eyes narrowing. The stepmother instantly straightens, her mask snapping into place. "Darling," she says sweetly, "I was only reminding the staff of their duties." The maid swallows her words. Her hands tremble as she lowers her gaze. The millionaire says nothing. He simply watches, his silence heavier than any accusation. That night, the storm breaks. The girl, restless, wanders from her bedroom toward the grand staircase. She holds her stuffed toy against her chest, her bare feet pattering softly against the floor. She pauses halfway down, peering into the darkened living room where the glow of a single lamp spills across the rug. Her stepmother sits there, sipping wine, her eyes cold. When she notices the child, she sets the glass down slowly, deliberately. "What are you doing out of bed?" The girl hesitates, clutching her toy tighter. I couldn't sleep." The woman rises, her movements calm, predatory. She walks closer, her heels tapping against the floor, her shadow stretching long across the room. "You're always in the way," she whispers, her voice low and sharp. "Always ruining everything." The girl's lips tremble. She takes a step back, but the woman advances. At the edge of the staircase, her hand shoots out, gripping the child's arm too tightly. And then, the maid's voice cuts through the night. "Let her go." The woman freezes. The maid stands in the doorway, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing with fury. For a moment, silence swallows the house. The stepmother's smile curves, cruel and mocking. "Or what? Will you run to him again? Will you cry until he believes your lies?" She tightens her grip on the girl, who whimpers softly. The maid steps forward, her voice breaking into a shout. "I said, let her go." The sound echoes, and in that instant, everything happens at once. The girl wrenches free, stumbling backward. Her foot slips on the polished step, her small body tilting dangerously over the edge. "And oh," the maid cries, rushing forward, grabbing her just in time. The girl collapses into her arms, sobbing. The stepmother freezes, shock flickering across her face. But it vanishes as quickly as it appeared, replaced with cold disdain. "She should learn to be more careful," she mutters. At that exact moment, the sound of hurried footsteps thunders from the hall. The millionaire appears, his eyes widening at the sight, his daughter trembling in the maid's arms, the stepmother standing a step away, her face twisted with irritation. The silence is deafening. What happened here? His voice is sharp, dangerous. The maid opens her mouth, but the stepmother speaks first, her tone syrupy sweet. She tripped, darling. Luckily, I was nearby. Isn't that right? The girl shakes her head violently, clutching the maid tighter. Her voice breaks through her sobs. She hurt me, Papa. She tried to hurt me. The words crash through him like thunder. His chest tightens, his vision blurs with rage. He looks at his wife, and for the first time, he sees her not as a partner, not as a savior of his grief, but as the threat that has haunted his daughter's every breath. That night, the mansion is silent, but it is not peace. It is the silence before a war. The millionaire lies awake, his daughter curled beside him, the maid sitting quietly in the corner of the room as if to guard them both. The truth is undeniable now. His world is no longer fractured, it is shattered. And soon, the pieces will cut. The mansion is no longer a sanctuary. It is a battlefield. Each room is staged for confrontation, each glance a weapon sharper than any blade. By now, the millionaire has seen too much. He cannot hide behind excuses or distractions. The storm he has ignored has grown into a hurricane, and it is about to tear apart everything he thought he rebuilt. The morning after the near tragedy, the house is thick with tension. The millionaire sits at the head of the table, his daughter clinging to his side, refusing to sit across from her stepmother. The maid hovers nearby, her presence steady, her eyes never leaving the child. The stepmother forces a smile, pouring tea with deliberate calm. You know, darling, she begins sweetly, children exaggerate when they're frightened. I would never hurt her. You must see that. The millionaire does not answer. His jaw is set, his eyes fixed on the tea swirling in his cup. Silence presses against the walls until finally he speaks. I saw her last night, in your arms, crying, trembling. He looks up, his voice low and dangerous. Do not insult me by pretending I imagined it. The woman's smile falters, but she recovers quickly. You misunderstand. She tripped. The maid is filling your head with lies. Enough. His voice cracks through the room like thunder. The child flinches, but he softens his tone instantly when he turns to her, stroking her hair gently. You don't have to be afraid anymore. The stepmother's lips tighten. Her mask, once flawless, begins to fracture. Over the next days, the mansion becomes a war zone. The millionaire withdraws into silence, watching everything with sharp eyes. The stepmother tries harder than ever to charm him. Lavish dinners, whispered promises, seductive glances, but none of it reaches him. The distance between them grows colder than ice. Meanwhile, the maid becomes the quiet anchor of the house. She tends to the child with unwavering devotion, filling the cracks left by cruelty with patience and warmth. For the first time, the millionaire notices her not as a shadow in the background, but as a light in the darkness. He sees how his daughter's face brightens in her presence, how her laughter, so rare these days, returns when the maid is near. It stirs something in him, something dangerous, something undeniable. But the stepmother notices too. One evening, she storms into the maid's small quarters at the back of the mansion. Her eyes burn with fury, her voice sharp as a blade. You think you're winning, don't you? You think he sees you, that he might even want you. Let me make something clear. If you stay in this house, you will regret it. The maid rises slowly, her heart pounding. I stay because she needs me. The woman laughs coldly. She needs no one. She's weak, useless. And soon, I'll make sure she's out of the way. Both of you. The maid stiffens, fear coursing through her veins. But then she straightens, her voice steady. Try, and you'll see just how strong the invisible can be. The next day, the battle becomes public. The millionaire hosts a luncheon with several investors. The grand dining hall is filled with polished silverware, gleaming glasses, and the sound of polite conversation. The stepmother shines as always, her laughter echoing, her charm wrapping around the guests like silk. But then disaster. The little girl, shyly carrying a drawing she made, approaches her father at the table. She holds it up with pride, whispering, "For you, Papa." The guests smile, touched by her sweetness. But before the father can take it, the stepmother's hand snatches it away. She laughs too loudly, holding the paper up. Oh, isn't this quaint? Our little artist at work. She waves it mockingly. But really, darling, don't interrupt. The adults are busy. The girl's face crumples. Laughter at the table falters. Awkward silence spreads. The millionaire's chair scrapes against the marble as he rises slowly, his face pale with rage. Enough. His voice shakes the hall. Every guest falls silent, every eye on him. He takes the drawing gently from his wife's hand, kneels, and pulls his daughter into his arms. Your art is beautiful, he whispers, loud enough for everyone to hear. Don't ever stop. The guests shift uncomfortably. The humiliation is unmistakable. The stepmother's cheeks burn, her smile frozen, her fury masked beneath trembling hands. That night, the storm explodes. She bursts into his study, slamming the door shut behind her. How dare you humiliate me like that? In front of everyone. The millionaire looks up from his desk, his expression carved in stone. You humiliated yourself. You're letting the maid poison you against me. Can't you see? She wants your money, your name. He slams his fist against the desk, his voice a roar. And what do you want? His chest heaves, his face pale with fury. Do you want me? Or did you ever want only the money? For a moment, the truth flashes in her eyes, raw, naked greed. She doesn't deny it. She can't. Silence stretches, broken only by her shallow breathing. Then, she whispers through clenched teeth, "You'll regret turning against me." She storms out, her heels clattering against the marble, her rage echoing down the corridor. The millionaire sinks back into his chair, his body trembling. He knows now, there's no marriage left, only a war waiting to end. The night after the explosive confrontation, the mansion feels haunted, not by ghosts of the past, but by the living, by a woman whose ambition curdles into rage, by a child who hides behind trembling hands, by a father who paces his study like a man chained to his guilt, and by a maid who knows that the storm has not yet reached its peak. The stepmother has lost control of her carefully woven mask. She roams the corridors like a predator, her smile brittle, her eyes sharp with venom. The staff scatter at the sight of her, the air buzzing with whispered warnings. She's dangerous now. Be careful. The maid knows. Every step she takes is shadowed by fear, not for herself, but for the child who clings to her side at every opportunity. At night, the little girl refuses to sleep unless the maid is in the chair by her bed. And the maid stays, watching the moonlight spill across the child's face, whispering promises she's not sure she can keep. You're safe. I won't let anyone hurt you. But the stepmother is already planning her next move. Days later, the millionaire announces a grand dinner in the mansion's ballroom, a gathering of powerful investors, friends, and society's elite. He intends it to be a show of strength, a reminder that his empire is unshaken despite the whispers circling his marriage. The stepmother seizes the opportunity. If she cannot maintain control inside the home, then she will claim it in front of the world. On the night of the dinner, the ballroom glitters with chandeliers, laughter, and the clink of glasses. The stepmother shines brighter than ever in a gown of deep crimson, her every gesture rehearsed, her smile painted to perfection. She floats among the guests, whispering charms, planting seeds of admiration. The millionaire, however, is distant. He speaks little, his eyes scanning the room, his thoughts anchored to the maid and his daughter, who remain upstairs under the guise of avoiding the crowd. The maid, however, cannot relax. She paces the child's room, nerves tight as a wire. She knows the woman below too well. Charm on the surface, cruelty boiling underneath. And tonight, with an audience, she fears what games the stepmother might play. Her fear proves justified. Halfway through the evening, a crash echoes through the ballroom. Gasps ripple through the crowd as a servant drops a tray of glasses, not by accident, but because the stepmother shoved it. The servant stammers an apology, but the woman seizes the moment, her voice rising theatrically. Such incompetence! This is what I endure in my own house. She turns dramatically toward the millionaire, her eyes glistening with false tears. And now, even your maid is turning the child against me. She fills her head with lies, poisoning her against her own mother. The crowd murmurs, eyes darting with curiosity. The millionaire's face hardens, fury flickering across his features. "Do not call yourself her mother," he growls under his breath. But the guests hear enough to catch the fracture in his marriage. The woman smirks, knowing she has drawn blood. Upstairs, the maid hears the muffled voices rising from below. She holds the child close, whispering, "Don't worry. Whatever happens, I will protect you." But then, the sound of hurried footsteps on the stairs. Her heart leaps in her throat. The door bursts open, and the stepmother storms in, her face twisted in rage. "You," she spits, pointing at the maid. "You dare humiliate me in my own house? You dare stand between me and my husband?" The child cowers, clutching the maid's arm. The maid rises, her voice steady though her knees tremble. "Stay away from her." The woman's laugh is bitter, sharp. "You think he'll choose you? A maid? You think your loyalty means anything to a man like him? When I'm done, you'll both be gone from this house, forever." Her hand shoots out, gripping the maid's wrist with painful force. The child screams, "Papa!" And at that very moment, the study door across the hall bursts open. The millionaire charges in, fury blazing in his eyes. He wrenches his wife's hand away, his voice thunder. "Don't you ever touch them again." The silence that follows is thick, suffocating. The maid trembles, the child sobs in her arms, and the stepmother glares, her mask shattered, her true face revealed. But downstairs, the guests have heard the echo of his roar. They exchange glances, whispers filling the air. The cracks in the perfect family portrait are now too wide to ignore. The humiliation is public. The war has broken free of the shadows. And the stepmother, desperate and cornered, is ready to commit her final betrayal. The mansion has lost its silence. What was once a palace of marble and chandeliers is now a cage echoing with whispers of betrayal. Servants murmur behind doors, guests whisper in drawing rooms, and even the walls seem to breathe uneasily, as if they know the storm has reached the point of no return. The millionaire paces his study like a lion behind bars. His fists clench, his breath comes ragged. He has seen too much: his daughter's tears, the maid's courage, his wife's cruelty. And yet, doubt lingers like a viper in his chest. How could I have been so blind? How could I let it go this far? From the corner of the study, he hears a small voice. His daughter, clutching her stuffed toy, whispers, "Papa, please don't let her take me." The words strike harder than any blade. He kneels, pulling her into his arms. "No one will take you," he promises, his voice trembling. "Never again." The maid, standing in the doorway, lowers her gaze. She has heard promises before, but tonight she sees a man ready to act. Meanwhile, the stepmother is unraveling. In her bedroom, she stares into the mirror, her face pale, her eyes red with rage. The reflection no longer resembles the flawless woman she once crafted. It is a mask cracked beyond repair. She whispers to herself, her voice shaking with fury, "He will not ruin me. I built this life. I earned this life. That child, that maid, they won't destroy everything I fought for." She grabs a bottle of wine, takes a long swallow, and slams it down. Her plan is forming, twisted and reckless. If she cannot control them with fear and deception, then she will remove them entirely. The next morning dawns deceptively calm. Birds sing in the garden, sunlight spills across the breakfast table, but beneath it all, danger hums like a low drumbeat. The stepmother enters the dining hall dressed in silk, her smile sharp. She sits across from her husband, her eyes gleaming with false affection. "Darling," she purrs, "perhaps we should send her away." She gestures vaguely toward the maid. "The staff gossip, you know. It isn't proper for a servant to be so attached to your child." The millionaire's eyes narrow. She stays. Her smile flickers. "You're letting her turn the girl against me. Can't you see it? She's manipulating you. And what are you doing?" His voice drops into a growl. "What do you call what you've done to her?" For the first time, the words are spoken openly, without hesitation. The servants in the hall freeze, ears straining. The war is no longer in shadows. It is in daylight, exposed for all to see. The stepmother slams her cup down, porcelain shattering across the table. You ungrateful fool. Without me, you'd still be wallowing in grief. Without me, this house would have collapsed long ago. I saved you, and this is how you repay me. The millionaire leans forward, his eyes burning. You didn't save me. You poisoned us. The child whimpers softly. The maid pulls her close, whispering comfort. The stepmother notices, and in that moment, something in her breaks completely. That evening, her desperation boils over. She waits until the house is quiet, until the millionaire locks himself in his study once more. Then she slips down the corridor, her steps silent, her eyes blazing with purpose. She pushes open the child's door, finding her asleep, the maid dozing in the chair beside her. She moves like a shadow, her hand curling into a fist. But the maid stirs, sensing something wrong. Her eyes snap open, and she sees the woman standing over the bed, her face twisted with hatred. Stay away, the maid hisses, leaping to her feet, positioning herself between the bed and the stepmother. The woman sneers. Do you really think you can protect her from me forever? Yes, the maid breathes, her voice trembling but resolute. Even if it costs me everything. The stepmother lunges, grabbing the maid by the arm, shoving her against the wall. The struggle is silent but vicious, their shadows thrashing against the dim candlelight. The child wakes, screaming, "Papa! Papa!" The cry shatters the mansion's silence. The study door bursts open, footsteps thunder down the hall, and then the millionaire appears, fury incarnate. He tears his wife away from the maid, his hands trembling with rage. "What have you done?" he roars. The servants gather at the doorway, eyes wide, the whispers spreading like wildfire. The perfect marriage, the flawless facade, the glamorous wife, all of it lies in ruins. The stepmother straightens, her face pale, but her eyes gleam with twisted defiance. If I can't have this life, then none of you will. The house is awake now. No longer the silent mausoleum it once was. It trembles with voices, hurried footsteps, and fear. The servants huddle in corners, whispering, their faces pale. They know the truth has finally erupted. There will be no going back. The millionaire stands in the center of his daughter's room, chest heaving, fury radiating off him like fire. His daughter clings to his leg, sobbing uncontrollably, while the maid holds one arm protectively around her. His wife, no, the stranger he once called wife, stands across the room, her eyes wild, her silk gown twisted from the struggle. For a long, unbearable silence, no one moves. Then she laughs. Low, broken, dangerous. You think you've won, she hisses, her voice trembling with rage. You think you can humiliate me, strip me of everything I've earned? You're a fool. Without me, you're nothing but a grieving man with a crippled child and no one to love you. The words strike like daggers. The maid's hand tightens on the child's shoulder. The millionaire's jaw clenches, but his silence is more terrifying than any shout. Get out, he finally says, his voice low, deadly calm. The stepmother stares at him, stunned. What? I said get out. He takes a step forward, his eyes blazing. You will never raise your voice to her again. You will never touch her again. You will never set foot in this room again. The servants at the doorway murmur, their eyes widening. The lie of a perfect marriage has shattered in front of them all, but the woman doesn't move. Instead, her face contorts into something feral. If you throw me out, I'll take everything. I'll drag your name through the mud. I'll destroy you in front of the world. He steps closer, towering over her, his voice a growl. You already destroyed yourself. Her fury explodes. She lunges at the maid, shoving her backward, her nails clawing at her arm. The child screams. The millionaire pulls her away, his strength fueled by desperation. But in the chaos, the woman's hand slams against the edge of the nightstand. The glass lamp topples, shattering on the floor, sparks flying as the wire snaps. For a terrifying second, fire licks at the rug. Servants rush forward, stamping it out, the smell of smoke filling the air. Everyone freezes. The silence after the chaos is unbearable. And then, her laughter, wild, shaking. unhinged. "You'll regret this," she screams, her voice echoing through the mansion. "You'll all regret this." The millionaire grabs her by the arm, dragging her toward the door. The servants scatter, some gasping, some crossing themselves. She thrashes against his grip, screaming curses, her fury spilling like venom across the walls of the house. He throws the doors open and shoves her into the corridor. "Pack your things. You're finished here." She spins back, her face twisted with hatred. "You'll replace me with her?" She spits the word like poison, pointing at the maid. "A servant? Do you think society will accept that? Do you think anyone will respect you?" The maid stands silently, her hand on the child's shoulder, her eyes steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. For the first time, she does not look like a servant. She looks like the true mistress of the house, not because of wealth or titles, but because of love and courage. The millionaire's voice is steady, final. "I don't care what society thinks. I care about my daughter, and she is safer with that woman, a maid, as you call her, than she has ever been with you." The stepmother's face pales, the words cutting deeper than any blade. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes. The battle is over. She is lost. She spins on her heel and storms down the hall, her heels pounding like war drums until the sound fades into silence. The child sobs quietly, clutching her father. He kneels, holding her tightly, whispering promises over and over. "You're safe now. She'll never hurt you again." The maid stands nearby, her hand trembling over her chest. Relief floods her eyes, but so does fear, because she knows the fight is not truly over. The stepmother's departure will leave ruins in her wake. Gossip, humiliation, whispers in the city. The family will face scrutiny like never before. But for now, in this moment, the war inside the mansion is over. The child is safe. The truth has been spoken, and the millionaire, for the first time in years, feels the weight of grief begin to lift, replaced by gratitude for the woman who stood when no one else dared. The mansion is different now. The heavy silence that once pressed against the walls has lifted, replaced by something gentler, almost fragile, like the first rays of sunlight breaking after a storm. The stepmother is gone. Her fury lingers only as an echo in the marble corridors, a shadow that no longer has power. The millionaire walks through his home with a new set of eyes. Every detail feels foreign to him. The echo of his late wife's laughter that still haunts the garden, the stains of betrayal that now cling to the grand dining room, and the quiet resilience he never noticed in the corners. The resilience of a maid who became more than her role. One evening, he finds himself at his daughter's doorway. She sleeps peacefully for the first time in months, her stuffed toy tucked under her chin, her small face relaxed. Beside her bed, as always, sits the maid. But unlike before, she isn't sitting rigidly as a servant on duty. Her head rests against the chair, her body slumped in exhaustion, her hands still on the girl's blanket, as though promising safety even in sleep. He lingers at the door, his chest tightening. For the first time in years, he feels something he thought he'd buried with his first wife. Gratitude so deep it hurts. Days turn into weeks. The scandal of the separation spreads beyond the gates, whispered in salons and business circles. Some pity him, others mock, but he no longer cares. He knows what he saw, what he lived, what nearly destroyed his family. And in those weeks, he begins to notice details he once ignored. The way the maid hums softly when she cooks for his daughter, filling the house with warmth. The way she kneels in the garden, mending the broken doll as though it were treasure. The way his daughter's laughter, sweet, unrestrained, always follows her like sunlight. He realizes something dangerous. It is not the grandeur of the mansion or the wealth of his empire that makes this house a home. It is her. One night, as the fire crackles in the study, he speaks the words that have weighed on him for too long. "You saved her," he says quietly, his eyes fixed on the flames. The maid looks up from the paper she was sorting, startled. "Sir, I only—" "No," he interrupts, turning to her. "You saved her. From cruelty. From loneliness. From me." Her eyes widen. "From you." He nods, his voice breaking. "I was blind. I thought bringing another woman into this house would heal the wounds left by her mother's death. But instead, I gave my daughter to someone who despised her. And while I was lost in my grief, you were the one who stood for her. You were the mother she needed, the shield she deserved. Tears glisten in her eyes, but she shakes her head. I only did what anyone with a heart would do. He steps closer, his gaze steady. No, you did what no one else dared, and I can never repay you. Their eyes meet, and in that silence, something unspoken blooms. Time passes, and whispers in society grow louder. Some say he has become colder, others that he has lost his mind. But then comes the night when the mansion's doors open again, this time not for a business gala or a dinner of pretense, but for a quiet, private ceremony. The chandeliers glow softly, the halls filled with flowers, simple, not extravagant. His daughter, radiant in a white dress, holds her father's hand tightly as they walk down the aisle set in the garden. And there, waiting at the end, is the maid. No longer in plain clothes, no longer invisible. She stands with trembling hands, her eyes shining with both fear and joy. The vows are simple, whispered between tears. There is no spectacle, no crowd of elites, only those who matter. A father, a daughter, and the woman who became their salvation. When the words are spoken, when the rings are placed, the girl runs forward, hugging them both. Now we're a family, she whispers. The millionaire's throat tightens. He looks at the woman beside him, and for the first time, he feels whole. The mansion is no longer haunted. Laughter returns to its halls. Love replaces fear, and those scars remain, the memory of betrayal, the sting of blindness. They are healed by the bond forged in fire. The millionaire learned that loyalty cannot be bought with diamonds or silk. Love does not hide behind masks or false smiles. It is found in the most unexpected places, in the quiet hands of a woman who once dusted the corners of his home, and in the innocent smile of a child who finally feels safe. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, because here we tell stories that remind us that true love and true courage are never where we expect them. And now, tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this video today?